In Mark chapter 5, we find a very interesting account from the life of Christ. Jesus has been out on the Sea of Galilee, and he arrives in the country of the Gadarenes. And as soon as he steps from the ship, a man possessed with a legion of demons comes to him. And Jesus has compassion upon this man, and he drives the demons from out of this man. Well, after those who lived in the city found out about what had happened, they came to see what had taken place. And we read in verse 15, "And they came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed, sitting down, clothed, and in his right mind, the very man who had had the legion. And they became frightened." What we see in this lesson is that sometimes you just can't win people over. This demon-possessed man from the country of the Gadarenes had lived for some time in the tombs, isolated from normal society because of the bizarre behavior that he often exhibited. He was rejected and feared by the villagers around him. But when Christ cast the demons out of this man, restoring him to his right mind, the people were even more afraid. Actually, their fright at this time was directed more toward Jesus than to the former demon-possessed man. But it was this man's new, normal behavior that caused this reaction. Friends, we have to understand that normal does not always equate to ordinary. In the context of this man's former behavior to which the villagers had become accustomed, finding him in his right mind was something that was alarming. They didn't know how to account for this change, and they feared the power which had made it possible. And we would have expected them to rejoice and be grateful, but they responded with fear and with rejection. But this raises an obvious question. What exactly does it mean to be in one's right mind? How would we define or describe this? Well, the story referred to in Mark 5 does not give us much information, but it does offer some suggestions to us. First, this demon-possessed man, once he was restored to a right mind, he displayed a calmness and self-control. He was sitting, he was dressed, and he was acting rationally. This suggests the process of thought and logic. Previously, the legion did all of the thinking for him, and his actions were the result of demonic prompting. They were illogical, unpredictable, and destructive. But after his encounter with Jesus, he came into control of his own mind, and he became able to regulate his behavior. Second, his right mind prompted him to gratitude and to acts of service. It's natural and right for one who has been blessed to respond with thanksgiving, often expressed as the urge to do something for the one who helped. Ingratitude is something that is unnatural, although it is quite common, in that it does not react logically or appropriately to one's situation. Jesus redirected the healed man's impulse to a more productive target, that of his own village, but approved of this man's intentions, as we read in Mark 5 and verse 19. And then third, we find that his right mind enabled this man to change his behavior to that which was helpful to himself and to his community. This very phrase, right mind, evokes the thought of righteousness. And this is a fundamental characteristic of God, and is one that Jesus came to teach believers to acquire in Titus 2 verses 11 and 12. A right mind leads one to righteous conduct. And one basic element of righteousness is helpfulness or simple goodness. In his letter to Titus, Paul contrasts the harmful, unproductive results of false teaching with the wholesome helpfulness of the righteous. We read in Titus 1 verses 15 and 16, "To those who are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure, but both their mind and their conscience are defiled. They profess to know God, but by their deeds they deny Him, being detestable and disobedient and worthless of any good deed. And then in the next chapter, Titus 2 and verse 15, and continuing to Titus 3 and verse 2, it says, "These things speak and exhort and reprove with all authority. Let no one disregard you. Remind them to be subject to rulers, to authorities, to be obedient, to be ready to every good deed, to malign no one, to be uncontentious, gentle, showing every consideration for all men." Friends, being in one's right mind is to be closer to God and to share in the elements of His nature. Mankind, we understand, was created in the image of God, as we read in Genesis 1 verses 26 and 27. But sin separates and alienates us from our Creator. And like this demon-possessed man of old, when evil no longer dwells within us, we find us longing for God's company. And that is truly what it means to be in our right mind. Friends, we thank you for joining us for our program today. We hope that you have a blessed day and a wonderful weekend ahead.